Right, let's broaden the conversation. We're joined by Phumzile Chifunyise, who's Commissioner at the National Planning Commission, to expand on this. Phumzile, very good evening to you. Thank you so much for your time. You wrote an article in the Sunday Times this weekend, just really explaining why you believe that government must extend the Spaza shop deadline. Of course, the extension has since been granted. What concerned you as you were writing this piece about the state's capacity to meet the 21-day deadline?
Thank you so much, Mpho, for having me, and good evening to the viewers at home. Indeed, we're actually quite thrilled that the deadline has been extended to the end of February. We think that that's a positive step in the right direction. At the time, before the deadline was extended, some of the state's capacity was a concern to us, and I'm speaking on behalf of the National Planning Commission, being, for example, as to environmental health practitioners. So we know that a number of environmental health practitioners have been deployed to enforce the regulation process. Back in 2020, SALGA, being the South African Local Government Association, mentioned that there was of over 4,000 environmental health practitioners in the country, due to a number of reasons. For example, we hear from experts saying that this practice was not historically given priority by our country. To find that there was a backlog of over 4,000 environmental health practitioners that are unable to do their daily jobs of inspections. So within that constrained environment, we now have to deploy these practitioners within the Spaza shop intervention, which we felt that the of the state wasn't able to really go through all the lengths and breadths of the country to be able to register all shops. And so the capacity of the state was one of the areas which we felt needed to be reconsidered in order to enable that all Spaza shops were inspected and visited, enough priority to do so. And so the extension of the 21 days, I think, speaks to the fact that the state itself needs to be well equipped, given the constraint of resources and human resource capacity that I'm speaking about right now, that to be extended in order for them to be able to reach all the and even more Spaza shops that we know of.
I'm hoping that this line will hold for a little bit longer because it is breaking slightly. But with the majority of Spaza shops owned by foreign nationals, you've said the government appears to be conflating the non-compliance among Spaza shop owners with undocumented foreign nationals. What do you mean by that?
Yeah, so what we've seen, and I mean, we work with SMMEs across the board as the National Planning Commission, and the sector is a sector that equally as important when it comes to contribution and the development as well as the growth of the SMME space in general to contribute to the NDP's job creation targets. What we have seen, however, is that throughout this entire process of registering Spaza shops, we are seeing government bucket illegal practices with non-compliance from a regulation perspective, which we think needs to be separated in order for us to be able to know how to deal with various issues and give the various issues enough attention that they need. So, for example, the fact that Spaza shops are not registered does not necessarily mean that they are undergoing illegal practices. It just means that they might not through the full compliance registration process, which involves registering business at CIPC, which involves adhering to various bylaws that are put out by various municipalities, which is very much different from what you would find that illegal non-South Africans would be taking up property, leasing it out illegally, in some cases not even with a legally binding contract, for example, and simply just setting up shop. And so further to that, you'd find illicit activity happening within that space because the necessary health practices were not being followed within that illegal practices. And so us bundling it and terming it and giving it one paintbrush as illegal practices, we felt needed to be urgently addressed for us to be able to respond to the different categories and the different elements of regulatory non-compliance versus illegality. And so we wanted to distinguish that in order for us to let government know that there needs to be some interventions with regards to coordinating efforts of detecting, of mitigating, managing the various illegal practices as well as regulatory non-compliance practices as we're seeing now in the regulation process. But there needs to be a distinction between those two in order to know how to solve for each of those two different aspects.
Yeah, absolutely. As I spoke to COCTA Minister Vilinkosini Hlabisa last night, he spoke about how this entire debacle is an opportunity to get more South Africans involved in the Spaza shop industry. Do you think government's approach will provide that window of opportunity to locals? Is government approaching this with the right view?
Sure, that's a little bit of a tough question to answer, I must say, Mpho, because I think it's a complicated issue all in all. We know that the majority of spazas that are being run in the country are being run by non-South Africans, and it could be for various reasons. One of the reasons why find South Africans perhaps leasing out their properties could be for income generation. We've heard of figures in the range of 2,500 Rand that property owners receive from non-South Africans for them to be able to take over their properties, lease them out and run other shops. And that really comes from a point of view of the level of poverty and the level of unemployment that we're finding in township areas and rural areas as well. And so when we are bringing in regulation of Spaza shops, and in some cases we've heard that it might be even over-regulation because we're going from a space where overnight there was no form of regulation or compliance that was needed, and the next day you have business owners that are expected to come up with building plans and all of the various that are involved within the compliance process to adhere to, which might not necessarily be easy for some business owners in this context, right? A lot of these business owners might not have additional hands to capacitate them to leave their businesses, to go out and do these registrations, so it's quite a complicated process. However, I do think that there are some positives that we will get out of this entire process, such as the registration of informal businesses, which really has been challenging insofar as economic development planning is concerned. In order for government to know how much services they need to put up in certain areas, how much water is being used by a certain number of businesses, electricity, and all of those bulk services, all of those services, it really is based on intelligence and data. So if there is not no really track record of businesses and no database businesses, then it makes it difficult for planning to take place. And so I think that there is going to be a positive outcome that comes out of this registration process, in the sense that we will have some sort of data set of businesses that are within the sector that are going to really help local economic development plan and services going forward.
Very well.
Insofar as whether government is doing enough to attract people into the sector, I think that there is an opportunity for diversification.
In what way?
As we know, as you know, a lot of these business owners are elderly, right? So young people need to be attracted into this space in some form or another. We've seen through various research that e-commerce, for example, is really gaining momentum within the township economy. The likes of Yebo Fresh, the likes of Delivery Speed, and those are all township-based business models that are operating outside the realm of traditional brick and mortar Spaza shop, that are also being run by young people, that are attracting young people, that are attracting different ways of bulk buying, different ways of delivery mechanisms. And so if government as well as the private sector who are involved in putting together development programs to do with the township economy, but also to do with the Spaza shop value chain, which stems all the way from sourcing products to packaging to delivering products, if we can find various and diverse ways of really diversifying the business model, then I think that we can attract more young people to come into the sector. But as for now, I think there's this opportunity for us to leverage off of what has been done in the past. So, for example, we've seen the Pick and Pay Spaza shop modification or modernization model from a couple of years ago, 2018, if I'm not mistaken, where they were trying to Spaza shops. I think that there should be more efforts that are being done to extract some lessons out of those types of models, but also go towards ownership of assets and production and manufacturing within the Spaza shop value chain that can contribute to the diversification of the space in order for us to see more young people participating in the sector.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for speaking to us this evening. Let's leave it there for now. Speaking there to Phumzile Chifunyise, Commissioner at the National Planning Commission, of course, expanding on some alternatives and opportunities in the Spaza shop model.